Hi there, I'm Suzanne, your friendly Stampin' Up demonstrator in Canada. Welcome to my monthly paper pumpkin alternative video on my YouTube channel and blog. I share 5 alternative ways to use the kit in this video, and I sell the products I feature as well. I hope you enjoy my free video tutorial and would love to see you sign up with me as a paper pumpkin subscriber. Visit sunstampin.com for more information. Hi friends, thanks for joining me for another paper pumpkin alternative video. This is the Hugs from Shelly May 2019 paper pumpkin, and as I looked at the stamp set, I saw some images that corresponded with the new Bird Ballad Designer Series paper. There was the feather image, and you can see the seagull image. There's 2 seagulls in this kit as well. So those were the finished products. And let's see here. I'm going to read off the 12 printed envelopes. So there's a couple colors. Petal Pink and Pool Party, I believe, are predominant. Then we have 12 printed card bases. So these are like, that was the Pool Party, I think. Really like this one. It looks like newsprint. And then here is, let's see, these are 1 sheet printed vellum die cuts. So they're die cuts of feathers. And then we've got some flower die cuts. And then there's, oh, did you see there? There was velvet ribbon and this weird pink thread that I really like. It's like chenille. It's like a chenille ribbon. Anyway, moving on. Just a quick overview, guys. Okay, so this first card, I have a Whisper White thick card base. Now, I've said before, if you've ever watched any of my paper pumpkin videos, that I like to do full-size cards. And so if you wanted to duplicate the designs that I have put forth, that you might want to pick yourself up some Whisper White thick card from your local Stampin' Up demonstrator. That is what I'm using here. And then what I ended up doing, you can see what I did. I put adhesive on the front of that Whisper White thick card base, and I plunked it down on the note card, the Pool Party note card. So what this is going to do, once I turn the card over, you can see that it will create, like the back half of the card, which would have been the Pool Party, is above and the printed is below. How cool is that, hey? So there's my first background for my first card. So I'm using tear tape. You would have experienced this in your last paper pumpkin as well. You might have some left over even. So what I have done is put that along the ribbon and adhered it to the card. Now, I did want to make note here that you want to go all the way to the very edge of that ribbon with that adhesive. It won't fray, I promise. So what I've done is I've inked it up with Pool Party, and then now I'm dabbing on the brand new Peacock. What's it called? Pretty Peacock ink. And it was just because Early Espresso did not lend itself well to this card. So I chose to use the thank you, a 2-toned thank you. That's how you do it, with a little bit of a dauber. Now that is optional. You could just stamp it with your Early Espresso if you wanted, but I like the 2-tone better. And then what I ended up doing was adding some of these little die cut flowers on the top. Then I ripped apart an envelope because, like I said, I'm going to be using full cards anyway. So what I wanted to do here is just cut out the flowers here, because this was my first card. I didn't know if I needed more of those die cuts, so I was trying to be sparing. And like I said, I knew I wasn't going to use the envelopes because I'm making full-size cards. So, and then what ends up happening is I hold on to these sort of cards, these envelopes, for a really long time. So here are the stills of my very first simple card. Now you can see the top portion there is sparkly, and I did add some Wink of Stella off camera to the entire part of the blue. Okay, moving on to card number 2. So I could not help but love these cherry blossoms. To me, they're cherry blossoms. I don't know. It could be another blossom. Who knows? But living in the Okanagan, I figured that these were cherry blossoms. So what I am doing here, and I'll get a close-up of this, is I am lining up this, like the label part of the envelope, and I am cutting it out with my trimmer. So nice sharp cuts and nice straight cuts as well. And then I'm going to fussy cut, which just means to cut out very fussily the flowers. So now I'm cutting the card base in half. And then that half I'm cutting in half. And now I have 2 halves and a very vanilla card base. So now I've put adhesive on the back of that half of the note card front, and I'm just going to make a strip of cherry blossoms, cutting off the excess. And then here you have, this is where the early espresso ink comes in handy, because it actually looks really good with pink. Brown and pink go. I don't know why, but it does. So I love the fact that the For You and Dear Friend of the stamp set snuggles right up under that beautiful scripty font. So I've taken the envelope apart, as you saw, and what I'm doing now is I'm just using a little strip of the inside of the envelope because I have a seam and we must cover all seams. So like I did in the first example with the velvet ribbon, now I'm using a little bit of envelope striping, if you will, to cover my seam. And now I have one of the labels and I'm just putting my favorite adhesive on it, and I am outlining my focal sentiment piece. So, and there is a little gap on the one side. So that little extra remaining piece, I just stuck it to my desk. It does have adhesive on it, but I'm going to cut out some more of those cherry blossoms and put them right over that little gap, and no one's the wiser. So it actually looks like the sentiment is silver lined. So I put 2 little cherry blossoms on that side. And now dimensional adhesive on the back. And I will center that to what looks pleasing to my eye. And then I'm going to add some of that, like I want to say it's chenille ribbon. It feels weird and it's kind of stretchy and it's soft like chenille. But it doesn't really say. It just says velvet ribbon and pink thread. So, anyway, it's in a beautiful petal pink color. They got the colors really good, matched really well. Tied a bow with it, and this is my second card. Moving on to card number 3. This is a really unique card. These are the pieces that I'm using. So this crumb cake card base, I'm going to slice in half, and I'm going to fussy cut the nest out. And I am not going to bore you very much with the fussy cutting, but just know that I didn't keep a lot of that branches, the sticky out branches. I just wanted the nest. Maybe a few sticky out leaves, but not too many. They went a little crazy with the sticky out leaves here. Okay, so the back half of that crumb cake, I cut down to 3 1/4. And now I am ripping that newsprint, and I ripped it a certain way so that you wouldn't notice too badly that the writing was upside down. So I wanted the white part to go a certain way. All right, so now I have some more of the very vanilla card, and I'm making it just a tiny bit smaller than my crumb cake piece. And now I've ripped also a part of the envelope here, and I want some of that stripy blue paper that's inside there, and I'm going to make a layering square for the nest. So you can see I'm piling up all my components here. All right, so here's my very vanilla card base and a sponge and my early espresso pad. This is the Stamparatus grid paper. I've laminated it with my at-home laminator, so it is a non-porous surface in which that I can sponge on. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm dabbing up the ink, then I sort of tap it onto my non-porous surface, and I am sponging it in a soft circular motion around the card. This creates an aged look, or distressed, or vintage, however you want to go with it. So you can also do it this way by sort of flicking the sponge onto the edges of your card. So I did that with my vanilla square and my crumb cake square. Now I've taken that stripy paper and I balled it up a couple of times, wrinkled it. Then I smeared it on my non-porous surface to get the wrinkles to stand out. And then I'm edging it again with my sponge. This is a flicking technique. You put the nib of a marker in its cap and flick hard over top of your paper, and you get these little splatters. So now I'm into the coloring stage, and I have colored my robin's eggs blue because they're robin's eggs. And I think I used Pool Party or Balmy Blue here. And then I realized it wasn't dark enough, so I had to go in with the darker Balmy Blue just to create some shadow. And I'm using my Signo White pigment pen. You can get this at the art store to dot white on the robin's eggs. Okay, so I'm not done with that nest yet. I've put adhesive on the back of my ripped panels, and I am adhering them about an inch away from the fold, and the ripped part is closest to the fold. Now I will trim off the excess. And my scissors got super sticky, and it's probably started here. Now I'm taking some of that Pretty Peacock ribbon, which is gorgeous, by the way. That Pretty Peacock is a new in color in the catalog that's coming here shortly. I put tear tape on the back of it. And of course you could use any adhesive that you have handy. Now I'm using my grid mat here to create a nice straight line-ish. You know, it's a handmade card. If it's got a little bit of crooked in it, it's even better. And here, cutting ribbon with my scissors again. I just noticed how gummy my scissors actually were by the end of this crafting session. And I'm like, oh, that's the reason why. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why. Okay, so now I'm just going to layer up my in my squares, my 3-inch squares. So crumb cake, very vanilla, and the striped pattern. And then I end up putting dimensionals on the back, but I don't pull off the dimensionals yet. And I notice where that seam was, because seams bother me, hey? So I noticed where the seam was of the two that it was lifting up, which gave me an opportunity to sort of go in here and sort of encourage it to lift off. Like, this is the only time that this looks okay in this vintage style cards. So here I wanted a little bit more dimension in my nest. So I just took, I'm getting lazy here and just using the stylus part of my take your pick tool, but you can use a stylus or whatever, even the end of a ballpoint pen to sort of burnish those eggs out. Then I dabbed on some early espresso color just around the ridges. And then I added Old Olive to my leaves. and dimensionals on the back of that, especially where the eggs are, so that they don't unpress, I should say. And I did take the adhesive backings off of that, and I did adhere it right onto the square. But now I'm going to take that linen thread that came in the kit. I'm wrapping it around twice and tying it in a bow. And I don't know if I actually tie the bow on camera or not, because I fuss with bows. Like, it takes me a long time. No, I didn't. I edited that right out. Okay, so I'm just making sure that it is where the bow where I want it to be, because I've got to put a sentiment on here shortly. And trimming off my linen, and then removing the backings from the dimensionals and plunking that. I want to still be able to see that torn paper underneath. All right, so the early espresso stamped off with the splotches that the splotch image that comes in the kit gives it a spotty look. And then this beautiful scripty hello in full strength early espresso. Do you know I hardly ever use early espresso? I always go for soft suede. Early espresso is darker. It's almost like black, but different. Okay, and then I'm sort of figuring out, this is where I want the sentiment to go, but I don't want to ruin my little turned up edges there, so that's where that goes. Then just with a little glue dot, I am going to adhere my bird embellishment. What did they call it? A trinket, a bird trinket. So I'm putting some glue dots there and using my Take Your Pick tool to adhere it right over top of the ribbon there, securing everything together. Okay, card number 4. So as I was looking at this stamp set, I noticed this image. And this image reminds me so very much of the designer series paper from the new catalog called the Bird Ballad. So I'm going to use that as my inspiration for this card design. So I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock here, just regular, not heavy, and I have stamped on the early espresso full strength. You can color over this with your blends, and that's what I'm going to do today. So this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of Whisper White, and I'm just making sure that the edges and everything is covered. And now I'm going to start coloring. So the color of Stampin' Blends markers I used are Bermuda Bay, Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight, Old Olive, Petal Pink, and Pool Party. These are some of the colors that are included in that new and amazing paper, Bird Ballad. And you can see a little example of that paper right there. Speaking of paper, I have a paper share going on right now. It's a product share actually, because I've included ribbon and embellishments as well to be shared. So if you are Canadian and love paper, ribbon, and embellishments that the Stampin' Up has come up with in the new catalog, please consider signing up for one of these shares, or all of them if you like. Shares are a great way of satisfying your full set syndrome without breaking the bank. And as your demonstrator, I am really happy to facilitate your crafting on a budget and making sure that your paper crafting journey is one that doesn't include arguing with your husband about your crafty spending. Anyway, I have a page on my blog called the Share page with all the information and the registration and all of that. So if you wanted to pop on by after the video, go to sunstampin.com and check it out. I'll put the link in the description box below. So I'm still coloring. I sped this up about 4 times. So And I did sort of a tip to tip technique to create a better blending with the Calypso Coral. Now I'm going in with the Bermuda Bay, and I have Daffodil Delight in the middle of the Bermuda Bay. And I know a couple of you, actually I'll address this right now. By the way, I know that some of you get upset when I advertise a little in my videos. So I just need to let you know that I need sales in order to continue to produce my videos. So I occasionally promote a time-sensitive sale or a product share like I just did, because I'm politely offering my services as a Canadian demonstrator to the Canadian public. Now, I would love your understanding about this, because I do put a lot of work into making these inspirational videos, and occasionally I will want to remind folks that I would be thrilled for a chance to earn their business. I am solely an online demonstrator, and my social media platforms are the only way I can meet customers. So I'm asking for a little grace and a little understanding if you do see me chatting a little bit about, a sale coming up, this or that. I know that a few people have gotten upset with me because all they want is inspiration. And I'm happy to give inspiration if, you can give me a little leeway. All right, moving on. So I just have a piece of Whisper White thick card base here, and I'm putting adhesive along the edges. And now I'm just going to adhere my handmade Bird Ballad designer series paper. And because there's so much coloring going on there, I'm just keeping it simple with the Early Espresso Thank You sentiment. And I will be adhering this on the top 2/3. And then I'll come in with the glue dot and that bird trinket and adhere it with my fingernails. Sometimes they're too big. I need my take your pick tool to adhere them properly. Okay, moving on to card number 5. I have very vanilla thick card base, and I have inked up my Grateful stamp, and I'm stamping 2nd and 3rd generation and then re-inking, and I only put the first one. The first impression was full strength. Everything else is 2nd or 3rd generation stamping. So it created, especially with this scripty sentiment, it came out so lovely. So I did the exact same thing I did with the other sentiment. I did sort of put those funky splotches on this where I'm adhering these feathers, and I sort of did a cross there, and then I did adhere it down, and then I took it back up again, and I put dimensionals on the back of that. I guess it's a banner, because I think I needed it to be more elevated. So that's exactly what I did. I put more dimensionals on the back and then adhered that. I don't know, to me, you might not see it like flat up, but I really liked it. Then I did add a bow of linen thread using just a glue dot. And the glue dots came in the kit. I just don't use them. And then this is where I'm noticing, oh man, my scissors are so gluey. Okay. Now, because I love you, and because I know that this paper pumpkin kit is global this year, or not this year, this month, I thought I would do a bonus for everybody. So here is how to use the stamp set without any embellishments or anything like that. Okay, so this is a Whisper White piece. I have treated it with my embossing buddy. I'm using my Versamark ink pad. This is actually brand new. It's not too dirty yet, which is awesome. I have the Hello Friend sentiment, and I'm stamping it on the bottom 2/3 of the card in the center. And then I am going to alternate between the feather stamp and the splotches stamp. And I'm covering the top 2/3 with feathers and splotches. Now you can't see it, so I've sped through that quite quickly. And now I am sprinkling on some white embossing powder and tapping it off gently, and then heating from behind, as I like to do with my Whisper white card stock. And you can get a really good picture of it moving as soon as I turn it into the light here. And that is the magic. We all love that. And so you can see a little bit of the design. I know that a lot of you have said, oh, Sue, I would love to learn how to sponge like you. So I'm going over it again. This is Pool Party. I'm using my non-porous surface here, and I'm going in a line across. And believe it or not, this is Pacific Point. And I'm just going on lightly. So some people are saying, I'm heavy-handed. You can't be heavy-handed when you're sponging. I have sped this up 4 times, 4 times faster than normal. So I have on my fingertips just a Post-it note. The sticky side is on my fingers so that I can hold down that paper. I'm using Seaside Spray. It's the new in color. So that was Pool Party, Pacific Point, and Seaside Spray. Gorgeous, right? I cut it down to 4 inches by 5.5, and I'm adhering it on my Whisper white card base. And I have kept that card so simple. This is kind of like my card. This is my style. It's very, very simple. And I love my Paper Pumpkin subscribers. So I have another bonus for you. Normally I only do 5 cards in the video, but today I'm doing 7. So not like I'm an overachiever or anything. So those were the papers that I was using. Loved this scripty newspaper print. Now I'm cutting 1/2-inch strips of this Pool Party card, and then I'll just I use, like I said, I hold everything until the very end. So I have my very vanilla card base here, and now I've adhered my newsprint to my card. It's not the exact same size, and that's okay. I'm trying to get equal distance, but it's okay if it's a little off. I'm not worried about it. So I have some 1/2-inch pieces of Whisper white. 2 of them are 5.5 inches long. 2 of them are 4.25 inches long. I am making a frame because we're going to make a shaker card. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just putting adhesive on the very ends right now, and I'm using my grid mat that is on my table here to line everything up and make everything square. So that is a square frame right now. Then I'm going to put adhesive all around the frame, and then I will be applying my printed Pool Party pieces that came in the kit. Now I thought I would go and be fancy and miter the corners. So I eyeball stuff when I miter, which is not good. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but I'll be honest, I shouldn't have really done it. So ignore that I am mitering the corners, okay? Because there's a reason for it. Some of these Pool Party strips, they only go up so far, so it really doesn't matter. How am I going to, like these 2 I mitered, but then the next 2 you can see they fall short. So then I have to do like a proper just square frame. So I have one side mitered and one side not. And you know what? It's a handmade card. No one's going to know that it's really kooky. So I flip the frame over. Now I'm applying some adhesive. So I'm out of window sheet. If you have a clear plastic somewhere, this happens to be our clear plastic envelopes that I usually put my cards in when I go to sell them or swap them. So I cut it apart because I'm like the envelope slayer, if you will. And I'm just pressing that down. And so that's my front of my shaker. So now I'm cutting off the excess, and also my scissors weren't working that great. Oh, but look at here. These scissors are cutting into my mini dimensional adhesives. So they have like this really kind of a thick frame around them, so I can cut and make a thin adhesive strip because I don't have any foam adhesive strips. So I just had to make do. So I was going to put some of those like blue flowers and pink flowers in there. You know what? It didn't look good. So I'm taking out the flowers. I put in a mix. It's called the spring mix of sequins. Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell these sequins. I usually get my sequins from Studio Katya, and she's out of Edmonton in Canada. And you can see that I put a feather on the corner. Now I'm going to make a messy nest for that same corner. And eventually I do actually crack open the guts of the shaker card and remove that little offensive pink flower that I didn't get out initially. So there's my messy nest, and then a glue dot for my bird trinket. And by the way, these trinkets are special for this kit. They do not match the Bird Ballad trinkets that are in the new catalog. So I'm so pleased with myself that I made a shaker card with no shaker card things that I almost forgot to put a sentiment on this card. So I put adhesive on the back of my sentiment piece that says hugs, and now it's a shaker card. How about that? So I have done 7 examples for you because I love you guys. I hope you had fun and got inspired, and I will leave you with the still photographs. Thanks again for watching, and bye for now. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. On screen are 2 more videos for inspiration. Click on the maple leaf for my blog, or click on me to subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for watching.